At 10, Grim Chica. The first Springlock victim in the Final Night series, Grim Chica is a primary antagonist in Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awoken. Unlike the others, she is not a Reaper animatronic. Grim Chica holds a strong appearance to the Springlock suit on the poster for the Night 3 cutscene, but her faceplates are very hard to spot. And she's also almost entirely purple. The glowing accents inside of her resemble a human corpse. She lacks a bib unlike the original Chica. Her overall body is very slim like the original toy Chica, except for her hips, which appear to be much wider for birthing purposes. And she lacks shoulders or upper arms, with her forearms protruding from her armpits. Grim Chica is also revealed to be a Springlock victim in the museum levels, saying, quote, "A victim of a Springlock failure, forever forced to haunt the suit she was wearing. Now being manipulated by your sister and mother. Tried spray on tan, still very pale." I relate to that. No matter what I do, I'll always be pale and pasty, okay? But I'm fine with that. However, while she is also a Springlock victim, she's in the suit that she was wearing, therefore she is a Springlock animatronic. Alright, so I'm like, come on. And I'll also be like, what did you do to my girl Chica? Like, I'm sorry, Mommy Kentucky. I didn't mean to. These are transgressions. Keep my wife's name! And at 9, Grim Fredbear. Grim Fredbear is one of the antagonists of Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awoken. He is only active on Night 5 and is found in the left hallway. Grim Fredbear resembles the normal Golden Fredbear, only with his suit glowing a deep purple color while the interior of the suit glows a bright white. His upper face appears to be torn off, including his eyes, leaving an empty, hollow, gaping hole in its place. That sounded weird. The inside of the mask, though it appears like there is nothing inside, actually conceals a white, pale human head that can only be seen during his jump scare. And before you ask, yes, it's mine. This animatronic is clearly meant to be a reference to Shadow Freddy and the theory that these Shadow animatronics were Springlock victims, which is later confirmed by Scott to be false when stating that only William was a victim of a Springlock failure. But in the museum level of this game, which unlocks after Night 5, it is also revealed that Grim Fredbear is a Springlock suit, saying, quote, "Another Springlock failure victim, the second generation of Fredbear." And at 8, Golden Call. As a human when alive, Golden Call's name was Kyle. However, now he is a Springlock victim stuck inside a Golden Freddy Springlock suit. Golden Call has the typical run-down Springlock suit vibe, similar to Springtrap. However, this is much more gruesome. His left ear is bent, he has bugs coming out of basically every hole in the body, human eyes are hanging out of the animatronic's eye sockets, just dangling there, like my grandfather's tie. He's missing an exosuit on his right foot, and the character is holding a flesh-colored, at least flesh-colored, it might even be flesh-made phone in his right hand that stays stuck to his head via more flesh and blood strands connecting it. Yeah, it's gross. It's a monstrosity. And looking at the age on the wiki, Kyle was only 5 years old when he got Springlocked, which is absolutely just horrible. God, that sucks. That would be rough. I would be offended if that happened to me. Like, yo, I'm only 5. What did I do to deserve this? And at 7, Am I Real? Am I Real, also known as Cake Bear, is presumably the primary and most recurring antagonist in Dormitibus. Am I Real has 2 different forms. His first form is Cake Bear. Cake Bear's design originated from the Save Him minigame, where he delivered cake to children while a child is killed outside. He is also the predecessor to both Fredbear and Freddy Fazbear. Cake Bear is a brown bear animatronic that also acts as a Springlock suit that appears in most of the main nights. Although they look slightly similar, the only similarities that he has to Freddy Fazbear is that they're both bears, and they wear a top hat, are brown, and have blue eyes. That's about it. Am I Real's second form is Am I Real, and is a form that resembles Springtrap. This form has a green color much like Springtrap, and contains human remains, because of course it does. His right eye socket has gotten bigger on the side, and a big hole can be seen on the right side of his head. His top hat has received some withering on it as well, and his lower jaw is slanted and worn down. No longer circular like Cake Bear's. He has a sizable hole in the right side of his torso, revealing organs inside. Rips and tears also cover his arms, revealing even more human remains. He appears to be missing at least 1 finger on his right hand, and is absolutely terrifying to look at. Of course, a decent amount of these are going to be from Dormitibus, because, like, have you seen the Dormitibus animatronics? They're just horrifying. Speaking of which, in at number 6, Garvey, a psychopathic, cold-blooded killer. He stopped being human long ago. That's how Garvey is described in the extras of Dormitibus, the game from which he hails. Garvey is the penultimate antagonist to Dormitibus, and as a human, he was a man who killed the missing children, and later went on to get trapped in Spring Bonnie, becoming Springtrap, and then was burnt to a permanent death in the Fazbear Frights fire. That's where these two differ, okay? Garvey is a much more gory version of Springtrap from FNAF 3, and one that actually dies. However, it is not William Afton, as this game was released before the name reveal, so even before FNAF 4. Springtrap, but with hardly any exosuit or animatronic casing, whatever you want to call it, right? He crawls on all fours, uses his left hand as a foot and his left foot as a hand, like some demon crab thing that I did not want in my life. Okay, like just look at this thing and tell me that it's right. You'll be lying. You're wrong if you think that this is okay. Halfway through it at number 5, the BOA. The BOA, otherwise known as the Box of Abominations, is a nickname that I gave my sister. Just kidding. It's an animatronic hybrid from the same game that makes us all beg for death. Haha, yeah. The main head for the BOA belongs to Toy Freddy. He has no ears connected to his head, and his top hat has a few holes in it, resulting in wires poking out. Toy Freddy has a small hole right above his right eye socket and a slightly bigger hole on the right side of his head. He's missing his right eye, and his right eye socket has melted slightly. His remaining eye is pure white along with his iris. He has no eyelids, and neither do any of the other heads. Yeah, that's right, this one has multiple. Both his upper jaw and lower jaw have melted along with his cheeks. This has also caused his endoskeleton jaw to be revealed more, even when his jaw is closed. In at 4, Soul Cage. The Soul Cage is an animatronic from Dermitibus, and it resembles a lamp that has 4 heads of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. Basically, it's an animatronic based on the bad ending from FNAF 3. The Soul Cage is made up of some props from Fazbear's Fright. The base of the Soul Cage is Bonnie's torso, with Bonnie's head being connected to it. Chica's head is connected to the left side of the main torso by a metal rod, and on the right side of the main torso is Freddy's torso, which is being connected to the main torso by 2 metal rods. Freddy's torso is tilted to the side, making him stick out, and Freddy's head is connected to his torso as well, luckily. Foxy's head is connected to the main torso by a rather long metal rod, which is actually coming out of the back, which is weird, and Foxy's head is positioned right above Bonnie's head. Each head that the Soul Cage has contains a single light source in their left eye socket. Each head also has large, sharp teeth in their jaw, because of course they do. They had to have something more, right? Like, it wasn't enough to just have 4 heads. You have to make them have razor sharp teeth too. They also have a grimy looking texture to them, which may be a reference to the fire at Fazbear's Fright, but can't be certain because I didn't design the character. Freddy, Bonnie, and Foxy also don't have their ears anymore, and there's 4 robotic legs because why the hell not? Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Havoc Chica. Do I need to explain? Havoc Chica, aka Maria, is a Havoc animatronic that hails from the Dermitibus universe. She is a Havoc version of Chica, obviously, and is a failed attempt by the Havoc puppet to give her spirit a physical form. While having the same color scheme as Chica, the two look nothing alike, alright? Not at all. The mask that Havoc Chica wears has a good amount of damage done to it. Her right eye socket has grown in size, arching upwards towards her feathers. The rest of her mask has small withering in a few places, mainly near her right eye socket and her forehead. She has no eyes at all, resulting in her being blind. Her jaw isn't directly connected to her head like Chica from FNAF 1, and instead her jaw looks more like her withered counterpart. Her jaw has withering on the sides of it and some towards the front. Her entire head is attached to a suitless limb segment, making her stick out in a way from our body. It's just grotesque and nauseating to look at. She looks like a chicken, like when they're like trying to get seeds. She looks like that. Just look at what they did to my baby. Look at how they massacred my girl, Chica. But ultimately, in at number 2, Golden Call. Golden Call is more or less like Springtrap design-wise. He's a spring-locked suit with a corpse inside of him, and he has become green due to his color rotting away. Half of Golden Call's left ear is bent, causing it to stick out in an angle. His other ear looks fairly intact, other than some slight withering on its sides. His black top hat also has some slight withering on it, mainly towards the base and sides, and he has one small hole above his right eye socket from some withering. Of course, it's withering, alright? It's withered. It's very withered, but it's not a withered animatronic. The hole also appears to be connected to his right eye socket, making it slightly bigger than normal. On the left side of his head, there's a larger hole, and he has a bit more withering on the sides of his head too, and another batch of some red substance is sticking to this section of his head, which is most likely blood or flesh or something similar. Golden Call also has a set of endoskeleton eyes in his head that have red pupils, and the eyes of his corpse are hanging out of their eye sockets and appear to be blue, which is wonderful because that means I can relate. He has slight withering on his snout, his lower jaw has been slightly degraded on the edges, and then inside there's 2 large things, okay? What organs this could be are unknown, but his entire torso is also heavily worn down, and his pelvis has a single hole in the front that it reveals like some more blood vessels, because of course it does. It's just disgusting. Finally, in at number 1, Garvey. Garvey is the Dormitibus version of Springtrap. Garvey is the penultimate antagonist in Dormitibus. As a human, he was the man who killed the missing children. He later went on to get trapped in Spring Bonnie, becoming Springtrap, and then was burned to a permanent death in the Fazbear's Fright Fire. He looks absolutely horrific. The suit on his limbs and body are heavily tattered and shredded, and his organic remains are far more visible than they were with Springtrap or Scraptrap. His lower jaw is deformed and broken, which it actually disappears on at least one occasion, showing Garvey's corpse mouth and jaw. Garvey now has an unnatural animalistic-like stance, walking on all 4 of his limbs. His limbs also appear to be snapped in multiple places, alluding to these limbs being bent in unnatural ways, and the fact that his left hand serves as a foot and his left foot serves as a hand. I don't want this anywhere near my life, okay? He is also much bigger than Springtrap or any other threat in the game, okay? He's absolutely terrifying and scarier than any of the animatronics in this game or any other fan game, hands down. And he was made before the Afton name reveal, so it's not even Afton. And at 10, Withered Fredbear. Withered Fredbear from Final Nights 1, as you'd expect, is a withered version of Fredbear. However, there is only a head seen during this character's night appearance, as it will poke its head through the holes in the ceiling in the attic. You just need to shine your light at him to prevent him from jump scaring you. Other than that, he is more or less a toned down version of Nightmare Fredbear, but with less bulk as we can see in the extras for the first Final Nights game. His jump scare is also frightening, coming out of seemingly nowhere like most jump scares, but with it being only its head, it gives the illusion of some odd movement that sets me on edge. Like it's his head just coming straight at you or like at an angle, so like he's kind of like doing this or something. It's weird. And at 9, Burnt Chica. Burnt Chica appears in the second Final Nights game, Final Nights 2, Sins of the Father, and Final Nights 4, Fates Entwined. The two versions are definitely different design-wise, but I'll be focusing on the model from Final Nights 2 for this number. Every time it says Final Nights, my body tries to say FNAF. Burnt Chica looks like Withered Chica, only that she is burnt completely this time. Her left leg below the knee is missing and forces her to hop around, kinda like a chicken. A majority of her right arm is missing, with only part of her upper arm remaining, and she still suffers from a missing left hand and a broken jaw, with the suit like having like her jaw kind of hanging, but most of it's also kind of missing. It's weird. Strangely, she also appears to be the only burnt animatronic who still has eyeballs, which are gray and featureless. The entire front of her torso appears to also be torn open, revealing a strange lack of an endoskeleton torso, which is odd to say the least. She seems to have endoskeleton at the joints, but that doesn't make sense because if the fire was hot enough to melt the endoskeleton, why did it only burn the casing? Why didn't it melt the endoskeleton at the joints? And at 8, Shadow Spring Bonnie. Shadow Spring Bonnie is one of the 2 primary antagonists of Final Nights 2. He is also one of the final animatronics of the game. Shadow Spring Bonnie resembles Springtrap, as is to be expected when mentioning Springlock's suits. Similar to Springtrap, he lacks the suit on his feet and has a majority of his right ear missing. Overall, he has rips, but is not missing any limbs or parts at all, which is a stark contrast to the burnt animatronics in the first 4 nights of this game. His face glows white, which is notable when he's in the hallway, but also gives him a more sinister appearance that pushes the something supernatural idea that most of the Shadow animatronics have, like Shadow Bonnie from FNAF AR. Shadow Spring Bonnie takes the roles of Burnt Freddy and Burnt Foxy on night 5. He is very fast, so the player must seal the vent quickly or else they'll get jump scared, and he also may appear in the hallway. However, you should never use your flashlight, otherwise you'll get insta-killed. Also, inspect his face when he appears there, because if he's twitching, you need to close the door, and then a rattling sound will let you know when he's left. The fact that you need to look at his face closely to see if you're in danger is kinda terrifying, especially when most of what you need to do is based on fast reflexes, and if you're stuck staring at someone to see if they're twitching, you can't pay attention to what else is going on. And at 7, Reaper Balloon Boy. Reaper Balloon Boy was introduced in Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awoken before being brought back in Final Nights 4 Fates Entwined. However, his Final Nights 4 appearance is much worse, so I'll be focusing on that one for this number. Reaper Balloon Boy's body appears to be immense for a small animatronic. He has long, extending arms with blue and red striped sleeves, and has protruding fingers at the end of his hands. But obviously they're protruding because they're coming out of his hand, but they're more stumpy. It's weird. He also has many red scratches all over his body, possibly resembling human cuts. In Final Nights 4, however, his appearance becomes much more disfigured and rough, with his face and fingers being stretched out even more, and sporting multiple sharp-looking blades on his propeller cap. Reaper Balloon Boy appears in Investigation 4 in Final Nights 4, and he, along with the other Reaper animatronics, try to attack Max Donovan in the hospital bedroom. If the player hears him laugh, FNAF, they must go up to him and shine him with the flashlight to repel him. The scariest thing about this animatronic though is his museum description that reads, quote, "Not related to Danny DeVito." And at 6, Burnt Freddy. Burnt Freddy, like Burnt Chica, appears in Final Nights 2 and 4, and is a burnt version of Withered Freddy. He's a rusty and badly burned bear with a top hat and bow tie with 2 buttons on his chest, because, you know, counting buttons is important for some reason. He has a large hole in the left side of his head, revealing parts of his endoskeleton head, and I mean, at least he has one, which in Family Guy would also mean something completely different. He also lacks eyes, a left arm, a right hand, and both feet, which makes him resort to crawling, which I have to be honest isn't the most efficient method of movement. Unless I'm drunk, in which case it becomes the only way that I can get around. In Final Nights 4, Burnt Freddy's texture looks more plastic though. His chin is fixed and he's able to walk around, and he can sorta kinda limp. Like me when I'm slightly less drunk. Actually, I can kick ass when I'm drunk. At least if I'm playing Blade and Sorcery and pretending to be Captain America. Did that on my personal channel. It was a fun video. Gave me an excuse to drink online. Halfway through into number 5, Scrap Puppet. I don't know why, but every version of the puppet intended to be scary just gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't have puppophobia, but it does. First, the Reaper puppet, which I talked about in the first Scariest FNAF Animatronics list years ago, and honestly, it was the inspiration behind this video. And then the Havoc puppet from another video, and now we have the Scrap puppet. This was only a concept in fan art and doesn't actually appear in any fan game, but this wasn't the criteria, okay? This isn't top 10 scary FNAF fan animatronics that appear in games. No, it's fan animatronics. It's fine, although that is a good idea. No, it's just fan animatronics. And while some people may not be able to make a game for their creations, they can still draw them and give me nightmares for all of eternity. The particular image that I found has just what looks like the beginning of a Scrap Puppet jump scare when you're salvaging them in FNAF 6, but obviously it isn't the actual game because the puppet was captured by Lefty. But this still sets me on edge with the tentacles coming off of it and that creepy smile. Oh my god. In at 4, Ignited Foxy. Ignited Foxy is similar to normal Foxy, just with only a pelvis, thighs, a forearm, and a head. Relatable. Ignited Foxy comes from the joy of creation, the same as Ignited Chica, but Foxy is even worse. Normal Foxy already looks pretty torn up, considering how he's a pirate and all that, but the Ignited version is missing an ear and most of his flesh. Can I call it flesh? Should I be calling it flesh? I guess it's missing most of its shell casing. Both lower leg sections, his upper arm, his lower right arm, as well as his feet and chest are also missing, but the hook's still there. He's gotta have the hook. Arrgh. He has to keep the hook. How else is he gonna make those 1,000-degree hook videos where he puts it through flowering foam and then carves your eye out? His eyes glow white, and honestly, I don't know if you'll love this Foxy as much as you'll love the normal Foxy after seeing this, because it's terrifying. Holy hell. Getting close to the end in number 3, Havoc Freddy. What the f is this thing? This thing has to be the most confusing form of Freddy that we have ever seen in any version of the game. St. Patty's Day Freddy, normal. Icicle Freddy, normal. What the hell is this? He looks like an even more canine version of Mangle with Foxy's arm in his mouth, holding a sign that says, "I look like a toaster with a slice of bread." And that's not a joke. I'm actually serious. He's holding an arm that is holding a sign that says that it looks like a toaster with a slice of bread. What? If the sheer confusion isn't enough to put you off, it's also missing an eye, even though it has another head attached to it that it looks like the eyes were torn out of that too. Go find those eyes, my dude! Can you tell that this series of games is driving me crazy? At this point, we've done more FNAF videos than I feel like anyone else on YouTube. There is over 450 FNAF videos in the playlist, and I've done the majority of them. I have done over a year's worth of FNAF videos. Penultimately, in at number 2, Blank. The Blank animatronic from Five Nights at Candy's and Five Nights at Candy's Remastered is actually very unique in concept. No doubt being inspired by Mangle, I think, though. He is a drawing attraction that is meant for children to write and draw wherever they want on his body. Over time, the animatronic was obviously withered down, and the withered version from the second game is where we'll be focusing for this number. Withered Blank is the most withered out of any of the animatronics. All of his suit parts seem to be damaged in one way or another. A large part of the left side of his head is gone, exposing his endoskeleton, his left forearm and right upper arm are missing their exoskeletons, and while his right forearm is completely gone, all suit parts below his knees are also gone, and there are 2 holes in his torso. One of the holes exposes an endoskeleton. His texture isn't even white anymore, rather more of a gray color, like the shirt you forgot to wash that just isn't the same anymore. Unless you use today's sponsor, I'm just kidding, we're not sponsored. Blank also can be seen unwithered in the first minigame, but he appears to be the same as he was in the first game, so yeah. But in night 6 of the second minigame, the player also can see Blank's original appearance, which is actually kind of cool. It's a cool concept. And finally, in at number 1, Withered Glitch Trap. You can fight me all you want about my opinions on Springtrap, but there is no way that you can fight me on the fact that Glitch Trap isn't an animatronic. Firstly, he's just game code, with no real world equivalent aside from William Afton and I guess technically now Burntrap and Vanny. Secondly, he was literally just a suit. You can tell by the fabric, the different design to the body we all know and love, kind of, and the stitching around his joints. But this version of Glitch Trap, specifically this one, known as Withered Glitch Trap by Shadow Foxy on Amino, is designed to be an animatronic, therefore it counts for this list. This thing is terrifying. Like, I've always had a soft spot for Glitch Trap. I hate this thing because like it gives me creepy bear vibes, if you know what I mean, like the old uncle. You know, it's an old meme, but it checks out. Anyway, I hate these kinds of things, and the way that Glitch Trap just like stands there and waves and then slowly gets closer to you as the player while you're slowly picking up these the tapes, you're also playing as a child in that game, indicated by your height when you load up the game. It doesn't sit right with me, hence why I avoid picking up the tapes, because I know that it's going to summon him. Now, with all of that said and done, this version is actually worse. The actual withered appearance along with the desaturation of the costume and the exposed endoskeleton is just, it's too much for me, and I can't do this anymore. I'm done! In at 10, Dawnbreaker. Aside from being the reward for a Daedric side quest, Dawnbreaker was expected to be an antagonist in the now cancelled Dormitibus Remastered. Dawnbreaker appears to be a heavily damaged purple mangled animatronic, the design of which was based on Shadow Freddy from FNAF 2, and presumably on the purple animatronic Hoax character. By his design, he's very similar to the Havoc animatronics. His torso is ripped and torn up, large tears exposing the endoskeleton underneath, several limbs with hooks instead of feet are sticking out of his torso and out of his head, making Dawnbreaker appear similar to a spider. And I think we all know how I feel about that. Any animatronic that looks like a spider needs to be put down and sent back to the depths of hell from whence it came. In at 9, Springlich. Springlich was a character in the Dormitibus beta. Not much was ever planned for him, and he was one of the 2 characters modeled by Golden Nexus, both of which didn't make the final cut. Springlich's body is actually turned the opposite direction to its head. This would have made it constantly walk backwards, which was actually going to be a part of its minigame. That way it was possible to make him stumble and fall, causing him to become stunned. They appear to be a Springlock victim, as they have what appears to be either blood vessels or muscles inside their suit, and they have a decaying head in their mask and only one eye. They have long strips of withering on their mask, and their lower jaw is heavily worn down. Different sized holes cover the rest of their body, especially in their torso and their upper arms. And at 8, the Havoc Puppet. He is responsible for the creation of every animatronic in the game aside from one. Havoc Puppet is formed by a cracked and distorted version of the puppet's original mask, which is now missing its lower half. The head has a small hole placed right above where the mouth would be, and 2 white pinprick pupils on the inside of empty sockets, which presumably are pitch black. The lower missing half of the main mask features 7 black tentacle-like extensions, 3 at the back and 4 at the front, kinda like a weird mullet. The side 2 and the front are used as legs, while the other 2 at the front seem to be like arms, which is just all kinds of wrong. The back 3 tentacles also seem to be like tails. I don't know why those aren't the legs, but whatever. It also has a crack on the top of its head, and you know, it's wrong. Okay, it looks like a giant messed up spider, and like I said, we all know how I feel about spiders. I hate them. And at 7, Molten Evil. Molten Evil is basically the shadow body of Dormitibus. It was a Springlock victim, and it is heavily implied to be related to RWQFSFASXC. Molten Evil is a pure black animatronic rabbit that is melted. They look very similar to Toy Bonnie, and it's most likely meant to be Shadow Bonnie. Molten Evil looks close to what Toy Bonnie looks like, but with some key differences. He is entirely black, and appears to have a grimy looking texture to them. His eye sockets are filled with a white color and a white substance, which is most likely plasma. get your mind out of the gutter, which is actually also seeping out from their eyes. And it's running down their face a la Crying Child, which hadn't actually been introduced yet, interestingly enough. All of his teeth are glowing a bright white, and so is his bow tie, and his bow tie, however, has melted slightly, making it lose its original shape. Don't all these animatronics just seem friendly to you? And at 6, Havoc Freddy. Havoc Freddy is a distorted manifestation accident, both from Havoc Puppet, who attempted to make a physical body for the spirits in Purgatory from plasma. When alive, the spirit's name was Ted. Get it? Ted became Fred? Never mind. Havoc Freddy bears a slight resemblance to his real counterpart, but for the most part looks very different. He mainly consists of a slightly dark brown color scheme, and he has a giant hole in the right side of his mask, revealing a large portion of his endoskeleton. His right eye hangs out of this hole by a few wires, consisting mainly of a black color with a red pupil. His left eye has a blue color to it, like his real counterpart. His eyebrows look rather large, with his right one just missing a small amount of itself. And his top hat appears to be just fine, though it may have some slight damage done to its base. A 2-segment long arm is connected to the left side of his head, with it wearing no suit on it, and the hand for the arm appears to be missing a finger segment, and it's also holding a microphone. Havoc Freddy doesn't have a suit for his lower jaw, and his entire jaw is just hanging low, wobbling to and fro by just a couple wires. And the rest of his body is just destroyed, which makes it extremely unsettling. Halfway through into number 5, Withered Freddy. While the Withered Freddy from the original series has a questionable backstory, like what caused them to be so withered if they're just not being used, in Juniors, the final act sees Freddy being torn to shreds, leaving him with only one eye and a massive scar down the right side of his face. So at least we know how he ended up withered, instead of just having to assume that over time, without being used at all, normal Withered Freddy just kinda wore down, which in reality, now that I'm thinking about it, doesn't really make sense. But this one explains it, so you know what, I like this version better. Story-wise, at least, because in reality this thing looks absolutely terrifying and is probably going to make me cry, and then wake up 3 times throughout the night because I'm scared, instead of Glamrock Chica, who would wake me up for other reasons. Which is why I find it ironic that this version of Chica is themed for sleep. Anyway, back to Freddy. It's just off-putting, man, okay? He looks like he's smirking, he looks like he's giving you the me eyes, but instead it's like the F you without asking eyes, okay? You know what I mean. It's just overall creepy as hell, and I don't like it. And at 4, Withered Balloon Baby. If you thought normal Balloon Baby was bad because he wanted to sniff your crack after a 15-hour movie marathon, Withered Balloon Baby wants to do that, but also wants to fill your crack up with, well, you get the idea. This man wants the term your crack to be a little more than just your cheek separation. He's the kind of person that after that 15-hour movie marathon with no bathroom breaks is gonna start doing lines off the sweatiest parts of your body. Starting with the good old sweaty swamp, and then after that's been looted of all the good gear, the boys are dropping at Lint Lake, and then, well, you get the idea. It goes on after that. And then, once he's finally done, and then he's had the other half of his porcelain face destroyed by Satan's snow, you'll finally be able to use the bathroom. But he won't be letting you go alone, okay? That's the kind of creep that this thing is. And the reason I compared him to Chucky is because he's possessed by an adult serial killer in that movie, and I feel like this monstrosity would be as well. Plus, it makes it a little less creepy, in the eyes of the jury. Who's watching this video right now. Hi guys. Not guilty, by the way. Getting close to the end of number 3, the Marionette. What in the absolute holy love of Satan and his benevolent disciples is going on with this version of the puppet, okay? Holy crap. It's one of the creepiest things that I think I've ever seen when it comes to the puppet, okay? Even beating out the goddamn Reaper puppet and even Withered Marionette from this game. And if you've been a fan of this channel for a while now, probably around 3 years in fact, you'll know how I feel about the Reaper puppet. This version of the puppet is supposed to be more of a ragdoll-like thing with a lengthy body and spindly appendages. She, yes, the game actually calls the puppet she, also has been given ears and a nose to add on to the creepy look. And you know what, I'm sorry to say this, but you shouldn't have added ears and a nose to this damn thing, because now all I can see is Curious George being absolutely coked out of his goddamn mind, being a little too curious about what my insides look like. You know what I'm saying? This is basically just like a monkey now, and honestly, that's terrifying, okay? I'm expecting it to start throwing its shit at me and then stealing my wallet, or at least I tell my wife that it was a monkey that stole my wallet so she doesn't end up buying a gun and keeping it under the pillow. And you know what? If you got that reference, we can be best friends. But ultimately, in at number 2, Withered Foxy. Just like with the rest of the Withered animatronics, Foxy was destroyed in the final act of the game. But in this chaos, he ended up losing his right ear, and the game makes it clear that his damage is actually the least noticeable since he was already damaged to begin with. And honestly, while the visual difference may not be that different, the way I relate to not changing much after being even more damaged is so much that it's scary. Yes, it's confirmed, I am Junior's Withered Foxy. My damage control shampoo is not helping, I'm still broken on the inside, but I was already broken before, so it's not as noticeable, and I wish that was a joke. But seriously, when I tell you that the past few years have been insane, I am not kidding. And that single line in the extras menu of his appearance is the least noticeable, as Foxy was withered to begin with, hit so close to home that it was terrifying, but also kind of uplifting in a way, at least if I look at it through the lens of I'm strong enough now that what would have broken someone else was hardly noticeable on me, and not the whole you're so damaged that people can't even tell when it gets worse kind of way. But you know what, that's why I have Blade and Sorcery to channel that frustration. Better than real people. Or at least that's what the lawyer said. And finally, in at number 1, the Ghost. The Ghost is the main antagonist of Junior's, and while I guess technically they're not an animatronic, they're the one responsible for everything that's happening. So in a way, they're all the animatronics. And plus, as I said, they end up becoming Mangle in the end, so I'm gonna count it. Basically, the Ghost is meant to be the vengeful spirit from Ultimate Custom Night. The Ghost seems to have a very strong connection to Paul Bear and wants to erase him during the final act of the game, and as to whether she is able to accomplish this goal or not is up to you to find out, motherfucker. Yeah, I've already talked about the final act and how it damaged the animatronics, but I'm not going to spoil literally the ending of the game for you. The main difference I see here, however, is that in Ultimate Custom Night, the one referred to as the one you should not have killed is meant to be Crying Child, but whether the vengeful spirit is the same as the one you should not have killed or not is a whole other question. Here, the Ghost is in it for themselves, for their own sense of justice, but if the one you should not have killed and the vengeful spirit are the same, then this couldn't be the same character, just the same concept. And yes, I said that because I know it's gonna make a decent amount of you mad, and I just find that funny.
Number 10, Shadow Withered Chica. All of the Withered animatronics are just horrific. So what happens when you combine them with the Shadow animatronics? You get gloriously terrifying creations like Shadowed Withered Chica. Withered Chica is already really creepy due to the fact that she is missing both of her hands and really only has wire left in place of them. Her bright yellow coloring usually helps to offset this creepy detail when it comes to her appearance, but the Shadow version of her gets no such counterbalance, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on your opinion. Her dislocated jaw is also highlighted even more here by the fact that she's in shadow, with her bib becoming a disturbing beacon in the darkness. The only thing you can see looming when she comes towards you, you're like, ah, her bib! Never thought I'd be so scared of a bib. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want even more FNAF lists, you know we want to give them to you, so be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9, Shadow Sprite. Shadow Sprite appears to be a completely original animatronic design. Sprite is described as a mammal and a carnivoran. Carnivoran meaning likely that Sprite is an eater of meat or flesh, so a carnivore. Carnivoran's kind of just another word for carnivore, I believe. So you definitely would want to watch out with this animatronic, as it won't just store you somewhere, it'll likely ingest you and potentially ingest your soul as well, who knows. Maybe this is the only animatronic who doesn't really gain remnant from killing people and can't really extract that, storing the soul, but instead completely devours its prey. Sprite appears to have 2 large arms that are wing-like save for the fingers on the ends of them. It has feet like a dog and giant ears that are almost bunny or dog-like in appearance. Kind of reminds me of those floppy bunny ears. Number 8, Crazed Shadow Puppet. So there are actually a whole series of these shadow animatronics and I love them. I love these little crazed animatronics, their expressions are great. For some reason they really remind me of Bendy and the Ink Machine. Maybe it's that wash of insanity, or maybe it's all the dripping inky-like look of their faces. But yes, it's definitely giving me Bendy vibes. Crazed Shadow Puppet is probably my favorite of them all, as we can also see that not only is there something very disturbed about this grinning, wide-eyed expression, but you can also see upon close inspection that the puppet faceplate here is cracked as well, which also feels somewhat symbolic to me. Having a face with a crack in it while also seemingly losing your mind? I mean, it's like your mind has a crack in it, you know what I mean? Number 7, Shadow Mangle. As much as I thought Shadow Mangle would be terrifying, and well, it is, I'm actually not finding this to be one of the most scary on our list, but it's still pretty scary. Shadow Mangle, even in one iteration, is pictured as being fully whole, although even then we kind of get some like Cthulhu-like vibes from this animatronic. The version of Mangle is pictured as being fully together with a big bushy tail and furry fox face and ears. Its teeth and eyes glow a bright white, and it sports a little bow tie. But while that all sounds not too bad in terms of scare factor, behind it, in shadow, loom a series of tentacles, if you will, obviously meant to be the pieces and bits that couldn't quite fit back together. Anything that is like tentacles looming behind it, I'm like, no, not gonna do that. That doesn't seem like a good idea. Number 6, Shadow Chica. Oddly enough, Chica is one of the few main cast at Freddy's who doesn't really seem to have too much of her own shadow version. We don't really know why this is, but just because Chica has a lot of weird love coming her way doesn't mean that she doesn't deserve to also have a super scary and mysterious alternate shadow version. Fans of course have looked to rectify this by giving her one. Granted, you have to be careful where you share said fan-made animatronics online in terms of communities, as some have attempted to do so in canon-based wikis where it's considered a major no-no. So yeah, but they're still out there. I like that they also still exist on those wikis. They've just been like, you can't do this here, but we're not gonna like delete it, we're just gonna like move it around. Shadow Chica is typically depicted as being less rounded than her FNAF 1 counterpart and a little bit more curvy instead. Why is Chica always drawn curvy, even with FNAF 1? I don't know. Her eyes, teeth, and the eyes of her cupcake stand out, glowing a bright white. So many curvy Chicas. I can't, even when it's not Toy Chica, people are like, let's give her a waist. I'm like, she's like a chicken. I feel like, I don't know. You can be either way, really. I'm not trying to body shame Chica here, just FYI, just to be clear. I just think it's interesting the way that people choose to draw her.
How are we doing at number 5, Reaper Puppet? Ah yes, my arch nemesis. The Reaper Puppet. If you didn't know, the Reaper Puppet was the first fan animatronic ever featured on this channel, in the top 10 scary FNAF animatronics list around a year ago. The first FNAF video by me on this channel was on January 29th, 2020. Can you believe that? It's only been like a year and a half, and we already have over 200 FNAF videos. And the video I'm talking about came out a month later, on February 24th, 2020. So I have a long history with this character. The Reaper Puppet, along with Shadow Bonnie and the brother from Final Nights 1, are the only animatronics in the entire series to start off a night outside. Reaper Puppet appears to be the counterpart to the original series puppet, though it is only the Reaper Puppet's head that is similar to the core series puppet. The rest of his body is a dark shade of black. It has long stretching arms that are kind of like goo and has sharp fingers. He's like the Grim Reaper. The Reaper Puppet also has multiple tentacle-like legs, which is pretty unsettling to say the least. It can also be easily mistaken for a tree, and its legs look like roots and the shoulders look like branches. This thing is so creepy that I included it on a list that shouldn't have had any fan animatronics in it because I was so creeped out and I felt compelled to. Like how kids in Fazbear Frights are drawn to the restaurants. But like, you should see this thing try to climb over a balcony. It's horrifying. And at 4, Shadow Fredbear. Shadow Fredbear is the other primary antagonist from Final Nights 2 along with Shadow Spring Bonnie. An odd thing to note about this animatronic is that Shadow Fredbear is almost perfectly intact, only burnt black in color, which is a hard contrast to the burnt animatronics, who are absolutely destroyed. He has a few rips in his body and is missing a left hand. The area around his mouth also appears to be slightly torn, revealing a majority of his endoskeleton teeth, but everywhere else remains mostly intact. His teeth and eyes glow, which make him easier to see in the hallway, and also for some reason the right eye seems to float in its socket, which again only adds to the supernatural feel. But no other animatronic seems to share this design feature, so I don't know why they included it. He replaces Burnt Bonnie, the brother, and Burnt Chica on night 5, and may hide in the right vent, which results in it needing to be closed. Obviously. He may also appear in the hallway, making you have to use your flashlight when he's close, since closing your doors may actually get you killed, as well as shining your flashlight too early. His head may also appear in the brother's shack, which will be signified by a breathing noise, so if you hear that, you'll need to hit him with your flashlight in order to survive. That kind of sounds like a prophecy. I don't know why, I just kind of get the vibe of a prophecy, you know, a prophecy of death. And at 3, Glitch Balloon Boy. Glitch Balloon Boy, also known as GBB, is the secondary antagonist in Final Nights 2, and also appears on Night 5, alongside Shadow Spring Bonnie and Shadow Fredbear. GBB is the only glitched animatronic in the game. He has the shape of Balloon Boy, but he's kind of glowing and flashes 3 colors very quickly. He also seems to glitch out easily, hence its style and name. He is also the least withered animatronic in the game. The character also seems to nearly have a TV grain aesthetic to him, with certain screenshots showing horizontal lines that you'd get like if a TV didn't have service, you know, instead of like the static, it's like the staticky black and white lines. GBB also emits a distorted version of Balloon Boy's laugh, and he will go through the left vent. Seal it instantly if he appears in that vent, because if you do end up failing to seal it, he will not jump scare you like other animatronics, but rather he will appear in your office and laugh, slowly breaking all of your cameras one by one, including the vent cameras, which allows Shadow Fredbear and Shadow Spring Bonnie to basically kill you instantly. While not jump scaring the player, he is certainly a mischievous scamp, making him scarier than the other two, at least in my opinion. Penultimately in at number 2, Stage Bonnie. Stage Bonnie is an antagonist in Final Nights 4 Fates Entwined. He is the original Spring Bonnie from Fredbear's Family Diner, as well as the very first model of Bonnie. The name of Stage Bonnie comes from the museum level, which unlocks after beating Night 5, however it's just the Spring Bonnie from 1973. Stage Bonnie is a golden yellow animatronic rabbit that doubles as both animatronic and suit. He sports articulated ears that are able to bend, he also wears a purple bow tie like Fredbear, and also like Fredbear, Stage Bonnie wears white gloves and has green eyes. While not run down like the other animatronics, there's just something about this guy that makes him creepier than most of his other counterparts. I don't know if it's because seeing a yellow Bonnie repaired is weird since all the other versions have been run down, or if it's the pose or the posture or the fact that William used it to murder like 17 kids, but Stage Bonnie is still pretty damn creepy despite being the cleanest animatronic on this list. Finally, in at number 1, Reaper Spring Bonnie. Reaper Spring Bonnie, however, is the opposite of Stage Bonnie. This Reaper variant appears in Final Nights 3 and 4 and is an absolute monstrosity, but he is definitely more terrifying in Final Nights 4. In at 10, Reaper Mangle. Reaper Mangle is absolutely terrifying. Some may just be scary because of circumstance, but Reaper Mangle comes from Final Nights 3 and 4, but I want to focus on the Final Nights 4 version, okay, since that one is actually terrifying. The one from the 3rd game just kinda looks like a Lego Duplo version of Mangle. In the 4th game, however, Mangle's face appears to be melted and decaying, as if it was chewing gum, but the gum was its face. And there is basically no exterior shell on this thing, except for the face. Slightly on the left arm, but oh my god. Honestly, you can only tell this is Mangle because of the name and the color scheme. Other than that, if someone looked at this only knowing Mangle by the appearance in FNAF 2, it would take them a little while before they actually realized who it was meant to be. The Reaper animatronics are terrifying, but they get far worse in Final Nights 4. In at 9, Chuck E. Cheese. No, I'm not kidding. Someone actually made Chuck E. Cheese canon in the fan FNAF world. I don't know what particular game he comes from, if any. I saw him on the FNAF RP fandom wiki page and just kind of cowered in my pants. He's just a recolored Freddy Fazbear and doesn't really have much other than a couple of images in the FNAF world, other than that, the one maybe, but like I'm sure you know what Chuck E. Cheese looks like, okay? Apparently, Chucky got sent to Freddy's as a guest star, but also started moving around at night. Well, since CEC, the parent company for Chuck E. Cheese, did file for bankruptcy, at least in part, this might actually come true, and if it does, if there is some form of FNAF Chuck E. Cheese crossover, I'm going to cry. There have also been reports of children going missing and animatronics moving after hours in Chuck E. Cheese locations, but these stories aren't true. And to anyone saying that the closed Chuck E. Cheeses should be redesigned into Fazbear locations, yes. Okay, you should go watch our videos, but also it may not be a good idea considering how many kids got stuff. But we made a whole video series about how they could do that. In at 8, Ignited Chica. Ignited Chica comes from The Joy of Creation, one of the most terrifying fan games ever. Scott's lucky that he didn't make this game, because if he did, nobody would play it out of sheer fear. Like, I don't know how horror junkies do it. Why do you like being scared? It's supposed to be a bad thing. Anyway, Ignited Chica is similar to the other Ignited animatronics, just a more decayed and rundown version of the original. And while Eddie may not be trying to get with this one, and I'm not really either, there is a clear reason why, okay? The jaw is gone, leaving only the top part of the beak and a load of exposed wire, okay? Half of her left arm is gone, and her entire right arm is gone, aside from like a little bit of endoskeleton, okay? And look at the feet. Like, oh man, Chica, like I can see your wiki feet score going down already. Okay, honestly, it's probably not going down. There are people who are into some really weird stuff. Like, I'm not kink shaming. I mean, I make jokes about banging a toy animatronic regularly, but like, it's not weird to them. It's only weird to people with a conscience. Moving on! And at 7, the BOA. The BOA is basically like another form of Mangle, but this time hailing from the Dormitibus universe. I say this is Mangle-like because of the multiple heads and exposed endoskeletons connecting them all. The 2018 updated version is far more hectic than the original as well, but it just seems kinda smaller. I don't know why, but animatronics that can kill me by biting my ankles off just put me off in a different way when compared to something like Foxy or Dreadbear who could crush me with a snap. Like the little Freddies and the plush trap and then like the plush babies, no. No. And this thing doesn't make it any better, considering how it has 5 heads. The head of Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Mangle, Balloon Boy, and Toy Chica. Mommy, why? But it also has the hook from Foxy just chilling, ready to tear your face off and like then lay eggs inside your brain. I don't know, okay? The story for Dormitibus is really messed up and I don't really quite understand it all. So I'm not sure what this thing is really going to do. And don't worry, this isn't the only Dormitibus animatronic on this list. And at 6, Reaper Balloon Boy. Reaper Balloon Boy looks terrifying in both Final Nights 3 and 4, the only games in which he makes an appearance. Luckily. But as I said with Reaper Mangle, Final Nights 4 is where the creep factor really gets dialed up to 12. His face is melting and hell, even his balloon is showing endoskeleton, which totally blows my mind. And the propellers on his hats are just going nuts. The right hand of Doom got run over by a truck and his left hand looks like me trying to use chopsticks. But like at least you can tell that it's still Balloon Boy. Despite messed up attributes, I can't help but get weirded out by this thing. Like I swear as I was writing this I had the picture up next to me. I saw him move towards me and then back away as I moved my eyes back, okay? It was a horrifying experience and I really need to make sure that I'm doing okay because I swear he tilted his head now. Really? I get that his head is tilted to the right, but like come on. And anytime I refer to direction, I mean from their point of view, okay? Because I learned my lesson with Bonnie.
Number 5, Shadow Springtrap. Not sure if it makes sense to have a Shadow Springtrap considering that Springtrap when he first shows up is still alive. Or alive in the sense of being a shambling corpse that can still move and think, I presume, but he was trapped within a Spring Bonnie suit. I guess as alive as Springtrap gets. The Shadow animatronics are typically all kinda ghost-like or glitch-like in terms of their appearance and what they stand for. I mean, they're kind of mysterious actually. We don't really know a lot about Shadow animatronics. I think we had a whole video about Shadow animatronics and like what are they really. In my opinion, they're kind of like mirrorverse versions of almost all the animatronics we know, love, and fear, like their other half. It feels weird to have this for some reason for an animatronic who is also a person, but just because it's somewhat unconventional, it doesn't mean that fans can't imagine what a Shadow Springtrap would look like. And the answer is, of course, terrifying, because Springtrap's already terrifying, so you shadow it, still scary. Number 4, Shadow Toy Foxy. Shadow Toy Foxy is a very different looking Shadow type animatronic. Instead of being quite as dark with pinprick white eyes like other Shadow animatronics, this version is a bold purple that is somewhat see-through, revealing their endoskeleton through their somewhat translucent purple outer exosuit. Kinda reminds me of those old Macs people had in the early 2000s where they had like colorful plastic on the back that you could see all the inner workings and the motherboard through. I might be aging myself here, but that is a thing. I remember those Macs. I don't think I ever owned one though, sadly. Of course, this could also just be an artistic rendition of what would be a much more shadowy animatronic should it appear in game, because, you know, this is a drawing. Shadow Toy Foxy not only looks scary, but also manages to look refined as well, keeping their bow tie, lipstick, and bright cheeks. Number 3, Nightmare Shadow Bonnie. Nightmare animatronics are already terrifying enough. We don't need to give them anything else to make them even more scary, do we? But that is just what this fan-made version does, so I guess maybe we do. Nightmare Shadow Bonnie is a version of the Nightmare Bonnie animatronic, one that happens to be more shrouded in darkness due to its shadow-like inky black coloring. However, even in shadow, this animatronic still gives us some detail so we can see how tattered it is. For some reason, I also find its expression, face shape, and its teeth to be even more horrifying than the standard Nightmare Bonnie animatronic version. So maybe we do need Shadow Nightmare animatronics, like a whole series of them. They'd be really scary. Number 2, Shadow Toy Chica. Shadow Toy Chica is maybe the most horrifying of all of the fan-made Shadow animatronics, because of how hot everyone is still obsessed with making her. Once again, this is Toy Chica, so Shadow Toy Chica is not removed from that. We're still making her like a weirdly sexy animatronic. Well, yeah, like I said, she is a version of Toy Chica. Shadow Toy Chica is typically depicted as having a big, jagged grin and an X on her chest, both of which, along with her pupils, glow a bright white. Sometimes she can also be seen carrying her cupcake, which glows a bright white or neon blue. Shadow Toy Chica also has her own Twitter profile that someone made for her under the username Shadow Thought Chica. I think that says it all when it comes to just how scary this fan-made Shadow animatronic is. Number 1, Nightmare Shadow Mangle. I thought that Shadow Toy Chica would be the most scary in principle, and then Nightmare Shadow Mangle came along. Mangle is already a horrifying animatronic, so this really just adds a layer to that. Nightmare Shadow Mangle is a lot more intimidating, considering that it's really hard to see. Mainly what we can see of this animatronic is its bright white glowing teeth and its eyes, and the eyes that belong to its endo puppet parrot. Yikes! This version of Mangle would be hard to spot if you face it in person, and when you likely did end up noticing it, it would probably be way too late. It would be like, I got you, and you'd be like, dead.
And at 10, Withered Chica. Withered Chica is by far the most damaged of all the Junior's animatronics, which is pretty unfortunate because we all know how I feel about Chica. However, even though this is closer to the FNAF 2 look, it's closer to FNAF 2's Withered Chica with the wide jaw and missing hands. So it's not really the Chica we wanted, but also not the Chica we needed right now. It's just spooky how design will dictate everything about how terrifying or how alluring the characters are. Like, this realistic style really gives you a sense of what the hell we would be up against as Michael in the games, but also the original games have that same realistic style in a sense. I guess maybe this is for like when they lean more into the horror element come FNAF 3 and Fazbear's Fright, I guess. Because from like actual animatronic standards, the originals seem to be more accurate to what would be possible. The Junior's cast mostly seems like they would just be suits worn by people, kind of like Avengers Campus. And by the way, only 16% of people who watch these videos are actually subscribed. You might have watched multiple videos and not know that you aren't subscribed, okay? So check out and see if you are, and if you're not, click subscribe, okay? Hi, I see you, New York. Everyone from New York, click subscribe right now. And at 9, Withered Marionette. Holy sweet baby Jesus, what the actual hell is this monstrosity? In the final act of the game, Marionette's face gets shattered, which leaves cracks all over the faceplate of the animatronic, and honestly, it makes it my sleep paralysis demon. Like, I don't actually get sleep paralysis, but if I did have sleep paralysis, I promise you, this would be the demon that I see in my blind spot. This thing has bloodshot eyes, the cracks reveal a gross underside that is definitely not the fabric of the actual animatronic like we would assume, and honestly, it's just all kinds of wrong. Like, what the actual hell? Why do you think that this is a good idea? If this is supposed to be a Freddy's location with a name based off of Midnight Motorist, why are you putting in animatronics that can scare even my grown, albeit a little bit of a pansy, adult? Why would kids think that these are fun to play with? I've seen kids that are literally scared of puddles and snails, but apparently they're fine with these freaks. And by the way, the snails were normal ones, not immortal ones, so there was no reason to be scared. And at 8, the Mangle. The Mangle from Juniors is nothing like the Mangle from FNAF 2. Trust me. This time around, Mangle is giant, since the ghost haunting the restaurant ended up building Mangle as her final form in a sense. Basically, just a Megazord but animatronic animal, using pieces of the different animatronic endoskeletons to create basically Creation from Joy of Creation but FNAF 2 themed, and then during the final act all of the animatronics actually I'll let you figure that one out for yourself, because straight up it's absolutely terrifying. And if you have seen someone play it and you've seen the ending through them, or maybe even you've played it for yourself, you'll know why this is just a frickin' monster. However, since it's not in the game for all that long, we're gonna put it up higher on the list, because I got a lot of things to complain about and only so long to do it. And it's 7, Balloon Baby. This iteration of Balloon Boy isn't a boy at all. He's actually a baby, hence the name Balloon Baby. This time around though, his face is a lot more doll-like to kind of capture the eerie vibe that Balloon Boy has, and as always, he's holding balloons and has his iconic propeller hat. Can't believe that's iconic at this point. That's how the game extras menu describes him though, but do you want to know how I describe it? Wrong on so many levels. Balloon Boy doesn't have an eerie vibe, okay? He's just a freaking weirdo. The dude looks like he sniffs people's calves after they do their jog. Like, what the hell? He's creepy, but in a perv kind of way, not actually like scary or threatening. I don't get that thing. But even then, okay? Turning that into a baby makes it even worse. It's like if Chuck E. Cheese was actually built for Chucky the Killer Doll. Why? What the hell? Okay, whose baby looks like this? Because I'm sorry. Because this thing is ugly as hell. I'm just saying. I have yet to see an actually properly cute baby. And at 6, Chica the Chicken. As described by their extras menu, this iteration of Chica is not themed around food, but sleeping. She dons a nightgown, sleeping cap, and her cupcake has a binky. How adorable. I'm sorry, adorable? Look at this damn thing. Chica was my main girl, now you've desecrated her like a freaking monster. This is goddamn terrifying. And then you made her themed for sleeping, but still give her a cupcake? Why? What is she gonna, like what? Is she gonna be the daycare attendant when this world opens its own deranged form of the Pizzaplex? I mean, don't get me wrong, I hate Mazercise just as much as the next guy, but I don't want my girl to be sleeping when all the fun things we can do require being awake. And just look at her! How could you do this to my dummy thick mommy princess? What the hell, man? Juniors? Ain't no way there's gonna be a Junior Connor running around if that's what Chica looks like. Jesus! Halfway through into number 5, Bread Bear. Bread Bear is an animatronic coming from the Day Shift at Freddy's series who was created by Dave by modifying a Fredbear suit. The character appears in Day Shift at Freddy's 1, 2, and 3. Bread Bear's appearance is oddly similar to Fredbear, albeit wider, I guess because of the gluten. He is a golden colored bear animatronic wearing a purple top hat and bow tie, and 2 black and white buttons on his chest. He has gray metallic eyes, thicker arms and legs, a squarish brown nose, small brown pupils, small white teeth, round ears, with the insides being a lighter shade of color, and a very circular shaped stomach with brownish shades scattered amongst it. He has rips around his feet joints and arm joints, and he appears for real when Dave modifies an empty Fredbear suit and unleashes it during the Sting operation on Friday, in which, depending on which route you took, it either attempts to kill Jack, dies, or it destroys the entire pizza joint and then sets itself on fire. And you know what? We love that. We love the chutzpah. That's the kind of tactics we need in this cutthroat animatronic world. Coming in at 4, Shadow Spring Bonnie. Shadow Spring Bonnie is one of the 2 primary antagonists of Final Nights 2. He is also one of the final animatronics in that game. Shadow Spring Bonnie resembles Springtrap as to be expected when mentioning Springlock suits, and similar to Springtrap, he lacks the suit on his feet and has the majority of his right ear missing. But overall he has rips, but is not really missing any limbs or parts at all, which is a stark contrast to the burnt animatronics from the first 4 nights of Final Nights 2. His face glows white, which is notable when he is in the hallway, but also gives him a more sinister appearance, and pushes the something supernatural idea that most of these animatronics have, well the shadow ones at least. Like Shadow Bonnie from FNAF AR, okay? It's something like the Winchesters are gonna have to hunt. Well, Winchester. Shadow Spring Bonnie takes on the role of Burnt Freddy and Burnt Foxy on night 5. He is very fast, so the player must seal the vent quickly, otherwise they'll get jump scared, and he can also appear in the hallway. Never use the flashlight though, or you will get insta-gibbed. Also, if he appears in the hallway, inspect his face, okay? If he's twitching, close the door, then a rattling sound will let you know when he's left, but if he's not twitching, don't. Okay, the fact that you need to look at his face to actually like kind of focus on it just makes him worse, okay? I don't like looking at faces, okay? I'm an antisocial person. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Reaper Spring Bonnie. Reaper Spring Bonnie, however, is the opposite of Shadow Spring Bonnie. This Reaper variant appears in Final Nights 3 and 4 and is an absolute monstrosity, but is definitely more terrifying in Final Nights 4, okay? He is 100% the scariest animatronic in those games. In essence, Reaper Spring Bonnie is a nightmare spring trap. He has sharp teeth and a very damaged and withered body. His suit is a dark yellow in color, he sports a big purple bow tie on his upper chest, kinda like Glitch Trap does, which is ironic given that this released first, I'm pretty sure. And like other Reaper animatronics, Reaper Spring Bonnie has a pair of hollow dark eyes, kind of like my ex. In Final Nights 4, however, his appearance is much more disfigured and gruesome, with sharper teeth, sharper claws, a different jaw, growths resembling kinda shoulder pads made of fungi, and a gooier appearance overall. He's also missing half of his right ear, kind of like Springtrap. I mean, like, that's kind of like a given at this point. Like, if you're missing half your ear, it's a reference to Springtrap. But oh my god, okay, this thing is more terrifying than Springtrap. Like, this is what Springtrap should have been. Or honestly, what I think a Nightmare Springtrap would look like I said. This is like a prototype burn trap in my eyes, or like a melt trap, which is probably going to be the next iteration of Afton. Proto Trap, though, that's a good one. And ultimately, in at number 2, you! Spoiler alert for a fan game, but if I say which fan game, I'm going to spoil it. So if you want to avoid spoilers, click array right now. You can probably just skip to the next number using the timestamps, okay? Alright. I'll give you a chance to do that, and okay, that's your chance. That's it. You're done. Okay. A Shadow Over Freddy's is a FNAF fan game created by Fiznom on Game Jolt. It was released on the 25th of April 2018, and since it was made by the same guy who's currently working on FNAF Plus for the Fazbear fanverse, you know it's bound to be good. The gameplay of Ace Off is a hybrid between the traditional point-and-click game and a free-roaming horror game. The player wakes up to find themselves with no memories in a black and white abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and is tasked with surviving 5 nights and escaping the restaurant. The player is given a different task each night that they must complete before 6 a.m. and without being attacked by any roaming animatronics, obviously. However, the ending to the game has you getting trapped in a springlock suit and being left to rot, meaning that you are a springlock animatronic, which is probably one of the scariest things of all, because I don't know you, but like I'd rather not get springlocked. It's also revealed that you then play as Afton, so it's kind of a fan character, kind of not, but like it's a fan way of having it happen. All right, good enough for me. And finally, in at number 1, Fred Trap. To be honest, I searched this up just for the hell of it because like originally we thought that Afton was using the Golden Freddy suit to kill people, but there are actually Fredbear versions of Springtrap. Fredbear is exactly what you'd expect. Springtrap's look on a yellow Freddy animatronic. The designs are actually really well made and honestly scarier than normal Springtrap for me, and like I don't know why. I guess like for some reason when I just think bears are scarier than bunnies. I wonder why. I think that Scott made William use the Spring Bonnie suit because of how scared Scott was of Bonnie, but that's just idle speculation. That's like my kind of headcanon. There are also even more rundown versions and even scrap versions of Fred Trap, which are already haunting when you don't think about the fact that it would still be William inside the suit being kept alive by the spirit of his dead son. Fred Trap is definitely one of the most strangely horrifying versions of Fredbear or any Springlock animatronic that I've seen, and that's pretty damn impressive.